As we continue our patrol missions around Star Trek Online, we're leaving the borders of our territory and passing through the former neutral zone into Romulan space. This is a breakdown of some post-Romulan actions in the wake of events, as most of these missions are simply arrive here, shoot the thing, and leave. So, the neutral zone was established in the wake of the Romulan-Earth War of 2156 to 2160, and marked the region of space that was not to be crossed without agreements from both the Federation and the Romulan Star Empire. First off, a point that will come up during this video is the discontinuity between Star Trek Online's events and those depicted in canon. For a while, Star Trek Online altered its narrative to stay in line originally with the Star Trek 2009 prequel comics, which marked the Hobus System as the origin of the supernova that wiped out Romulus. Then it folded in multiple narratives from various books and attempted to streamline it all into one tale. When Star Trek Picard aired, we got our first look into the events post-Nemesis, and STO adapted as best it could to accommodate this, and in reciprocation the show's adopted several elements of STO into its narrative, most notably its ship designs. But the shows and its novels established the Romulan home system's sun as the origin point of the supernova instead, although it's still alluded to the artificial nature of the explosion. Aside from this, there are minor deviations, but that's the major one, and I believe that Star Trek Online has been trying to find its place in, well, the multiverse, I guess, of Star Trek, even though its Twitter, as of this video, still says it's set in the Prime timeline. I believe there are behind-the-scenes voices saying that to make it fit would result in too many alterations now to its narrative. This was a long-winded way of explaining why STO is currently considered its own continuity, but one heavily informed by the Prime Timeline shows. Anyway, back to the Romulans. During the evacuation, Admiral Picard effectively dissolved the neutral zone in his rescue efforts, and it was the infamous Admiral Clancy who had to deal with the paperwork and political fallout of him disregarding this bureaucratic red tape that was slowing down his efforts. Good move or not, he needed to move more freely into and out of Romulan space, and governments were slowing him down. This also adds to some context as to her outburst in the shows, but she can still screw off. So, where Picard could, bolstered by the Federation and a reluctant Romulan Empire, he established numerous colony worlds and sites across Romulan space, and even into the fringes of Federation territory. Not all of these sites were immediately inhabited, as you can imagine, and not every UFP member planet was happy with this agreement. Picard's approach was pretty much, yes, this will cause problems later on down the line, but we need to save as many lives as we can now, then deal with it. His detractors saw him as being short-sighted. As we entered into the Re-system, we encounter one such colony world, which is currently under the harassment of the Star Empire, who are pressuring it to rejoin while it attempts to go independent. We're here to ensure that they are allowed to continue on their own path by driving away the troublesome Imperial presence. So, while the Federation worked to establish colonies and make room from its side, the Star Empire was busy offloading its selected people to secure more comfortable worlds like Rator. Many Romulans, therefore, not to mention all the native species that the Star Empire had subjugated in its time, were left to fend for themselves, or rely on Starfleet. So, when Starfleet pulled out in 2385 due to its own fear and defensive stance, many Romulans then found themselves stranded in less than ideal circumstances, with half-finished colonies and only plans unacted. However, Federation aid was not completely absent, just the, massive evacuation fleet promised. However, medical aid and some relief was provided, but Starfleet had started to look inward more than it did previously, until the approach of the 25th century. Right, we've secured the Re-system, and time to move on, warping into a strange anomaly that we have detected. It's a tear in subspace, caused, we suspect, by Elachi involvement, and if we beam a message into it, well, we will end up in a musical. Skipping ahead some time now, and we have numerous colonies made up of displaced Romulans, Remans, and others that are now in various states, and the central government of the Star Empire, now based on Rator, was made up completely of loyalists that followed Empress Seela. I've got a long video on the whole Game of Thrones that took place in the Empire for all of this to unfold. Meanwhile, the disparate colony worlds, like this one in the Cerro system, had their own governments rise up to oversee them, and soon factions formed. Some were peaceable, some held a grudge against the Federation, some wanted to rejoin the Empire, and so on. When several of these colony worlds unified under Titan, they formed the Republic and settled in the Dewa system, creating a fairly stable seat of power. The Star Empire pretty much continued to shun the Federation and openly declared itself an enemy when both the Klingon Empire and the UFP recognised the Republic as a true power and began to work with it. The Federation's dealings with the Romulans, therefore, is one of careful balance. Not only do they have the past inactivity to make up for, not every Romulan citizen feels the same about the UFP, and the Imperial elements are openly hostile, seeking to reclaim their former citizens that have defected or are seeking independence. So, this is where you end up with outposts like Starbase 39 in the Sierra System, and this delicate game of observation and intervention is overseen by the Romulan Special Operations lead, Admiral Tanay, and Starfleet Intelligence. Here we can find Commander Kyle DeSoto when he's not working on his Mirror Universe spycraft, as well as numerous other operatives under Tanay's oversight, all engaged in counter-Star Empire operations and aiding the unaffiliated Romulan colonists. It's also the home of Admiral Zele, the first Deltan to reach the rank of Admiral. We finished up helping in the Cerro system, clearing out some Riemann pirates who are plundering the miners, which raises an interesting point. Although the supernova was ultimately devastating, it did fracture many planets and systems around it, exposing many metals, ores and elements for easier access. So one resource the Romulans did have was the abundance of such to trade. However, their disparate status meant that it was frequently the target of plunder, as they lacked the security to hold on to such resources. We make a quick stop at the Great Bloom, also known as the Basin Rift, the site of the conflict in 2379 between Shinzon and the Enterprise E, and the subsequent detonation of the Riemann flagship's Thalaron core. The Thalaron radiation in this area, mixed with the already hazardous navigational gases, also created a subspace tunnel to the small Magellanic Cloud. This posed a major hazard, as it was also a potential entry point for a proto-universe into our own. Bad news, and it had to be sealed in 2380. Still, no universe-ending calamities here today, let's move on. The next system we pass through is the Hobus System, the origin of the supernova in the Star Trek Online continuity, as far as I'm aware. Moving on, we have the Fizzband Wait system. This is one of those worlds I mentioned that suffered extensively from the supernova, being as it's close by, and it's full of ores to mine. There is a Star Empire presence here, but also a new element was uncovered in the rings of Fizzband 1. Our mission is not to engage the hostiles if we can help it, but retrieve the ore and depart again. So we do just that with some fancy flying at high speed, and then we dart past before the Romulans can intercept us. The next system we enter is the Longo System. This place received high doses of radiation and subspace radiation from the supernova, meaning that warp travel here is intermittent, and metaphasic shielding is needed to enter the system thanks to these hazards. However, this location is a meeting point between the Hirogen forces and the Star Empire, with plans being made to forge a more consistent pact between these two enemies of the Federation. Our mission here today is a preventative one. We are to make it clear that this system is under observation and too dangerous, interfering with the planned talks, delaying them at the very least. That feels a little cheap, but it might work to dissuade the Hirogen, for some time at least. The last system we have on our patrol today is the Romulus System itself. There's little here, save a memorial station positioned on a chunk of rock from the former capital planet. Remus and Romulus were both consumed by the blast from the supernova, leaving only rubble and cosmic dust in the wake of the blast. A holographic memorial miles high, standing as tribute to those lost. Starfleet is permitted to patrol and explore the Romulan territory thanks to the allowances of the Romulan Republic. It's now officially recognised primary government, but the Romulan people are still far from united in alliance with the UFP. We already covered the Star Empire and its blade, the Tal Shiar. While crippled by the events of the main story series, they are still adamant that Starfleet is a detrimental force to the Romulans. They still search amid Borg technologies to empower their vessels, and they run themselves through the fear and paranoia that aided in the downfall of their own world. The Romulan Republic makes up numerous colony worlds, but it's far from all of them, and many are too burdened by both the Empire that forgot them and the Federation that failed them. By 2411 though, things are looking up at least. The Star Empire is diminished and the Republic grows day by day, and although there have been numerous conflicts, the Romulan civilian populace has been relatively untouched by it all in the last 2 years, since the loss of both the head of the Tal Shiar and the Empress. Starfleet maintains a constant vigil over the Romulan border now, but it's not the same anymore, as the paranoid eavesdropping and testing of defences as the time of the neutral zone. The game has changed, and there are only a couple of players still clinging to the old rule set, while everyone else moves on. Thanks for watching this part of the Star Trek Online Patrol series. I thought I'd try something a bit more focused on the lore, as the missions themselves are pretty bland, but the context in which they sit is more interesting to me, and hopefully you too. Thanks again. I've been Rick, so until the next part, so long, and goodbye.